Hello there. Today let me take you to a remote corner of Maskeliya district to visit one of the best plantations in the Maskeliya district. Going to the place is a little difficult due to the most unpredictable weather patterns, extremely poor state of roads in most places, and having to overcome bureaucratic red tape tied around many of the plantations. Since I am relatively a nothing in the world of corporate bureaucracy, my visit was facilitated thanks to some of the leading professionals in the tea industry who helped me overcome many of the problems and difficulties. As I neared Laxapana plantation, I was more attracted to the country's best known mountain called the Adams Peak. Though Laxapana estate falls within the central point, Adams Peak is located in the Ratnapura district of the Sabragama province, lying about 40 kilometers northeast of the city of Ratnapura. The area around Adams Peak consists of forested hills, making Adams Peak stand out in all its majesty. The forest region and the mountain is a wildlife reserve, housing many species of animals such as elephants and leopards. Ratnapura, meaning city of gems, and the surrounding districts of Adams Peak yield precious stones such as emeralds, rubies and sapphires, for which Sri Lanka has been famous for a long time. Unlike most other areas of Maskeliya, the view from the road leading to Laxapana looked very beautiful due to the dam built across the river Maskeliya Oya, and the water was to its brim after heavy rainfall in the previous week. The reservoir is known as Mousakelle, taking up the name of a nearby estate, Mousakelle. Sorry, I drifted off on my story, which is really about Laxapana tea plantations. Now let us take a look at it. At the foothill of Adams Peak lies the Laxapana group on an elevation ranging from 1150 to 1706 meters. The group consists of Laxapana, Vallimale, St. Andrews, Lower and Upper and Hamilton divisions. Situated 32 kilometers from the nearest railway station Hatton and 12.8 kilometers from Maskeliya town, the plantation is one of the remotest in the country. The road leading to Laxapana, however, looked better maintained since the road also leads towards Adams Peak. The road to Adams Peak actually begins close to the western boundary of Laxapana, and therefore some even call it the gateway to the peak. The estate, which comes under Maskeliya planting district, is classed under western high ground. Tea cultivation commenced between 1870 and 1880. Presently, an extent of 227.40 hectares is under VPT and 165.40 hectares under Seedling Tea. It has about 129 hectares under forestry and fuel wood. Laxapana factory manufactures around 800,000 kilograms of black tea per year using Rotorvane or Orthodox type of manufacture. The group manager Mr. Ashanka D. Tisera and factory manager Mr. Ananda Pereira were both former acquaintances of my brother Nilam Kamis, who accompanied me, and made my task much easier than I expected. Mr. Tisera had many interesting tales to relate about his experiences with the estate. He gave a great deal of information regarding what Laxapana went through with the construction of the dam, that is the Mousakelle Dam. The then government of Ceylon, Sri Lanka, decided to build a dam across Maskeliya River in the late 1950s. The river once flowed through Maskeliya and fed into the Kalniganga, one of the major rivers of Sri Lanka. The intention was to construct a major hydroelectric scheme which would provide electricity to many parts of the country. The project resulted in the inundation of several thousand acres of land, including the entire Maskeliya town and 7 tea factories. Laxapana Group lost its tea factory, 150 acres of land, manager's bungalow, several staff quarters, and a number of ancillary buildings. I saw 3 plaques containing names of Laxapana visiting agents. Visiting agents are experienced consultants who visit the estate regularly, superintendents and factory officers of the past. Some of the names were familiar from my time working in the plantation sector. One particular superintendent I should mention, Mr. Fred Cresum, 1965 to 1971. The group manager was indeed good enough to make available a valuable piece of paper titled Memories of Laxapana by Fred Cresum, who left Sri Lanka to settle down in Vermont, South Victoria, Australia in 1971. I would read out some interesting extracts from his Memories of Laxapana, which are quite interesting and historical. Quote, with the demolition of the old tea factory, Laxapana too had a brand new factory built by Walker Sons & Co. This factory was more conventional, having 14 trucks for the withering process, 7 on either side of the building, but on the first floor. Of the greatest interest to me was the position of the new factory which I felt was in an excellent position, and this did not come about by chance. This was how the site for the new factory was selected according to Fred. Quote, during the first 4 years of my stay on Laxapana, I worked as an assistant superintendent under Mr. Wilfred Bond, who gave me an important assignment, that is, to maintain daily records of the minimum and maximum temperature from 3 different locations. After a year or two, and having studied the figures, he decided on the new site, which was a small hillock and which had to be flattened at quite a large expense using 2 bulldozers. This was money well spent. I mentioned this because it happened nearly 50 years ago, and I doubt whether any of the current owners or employees are aware of the thinking and immense wisdom that went into the choosing of this site, common sense and great foresight which has borne fruit. Unquote. I am not sure if any of those currently involved with the estate are aware of this, but certainly Mr. Teixeira does. When Laxapana lost 150 acres of valuable tea land for the reservoir, a significant number of the labor force had to be retained as excess. However, this was how the problem was overcome. Quote, with government approval, we were allowed to cultivate an equal extent of virgin land higher up in an area called the Peak Wilderness under the deep replanting subsidy scheme, using cuttings from well-known clones as against the earlier practice of tea seedlings. The planting of clonal tea has many advantages over seedling, notably a very much higher yield, proven quality, and a resistance to certain diseases. Obtaining labor to work on a different division, especially such a distance away, was always a challenge. The problem was overcome by an agreement between the management and the labor unions that retrenchment would not take place if the unions agreed to the transfer of selected workers who would willingly work on the new clearing, and that once the new tea was in production, they would transfer to the new division named Hamilton as well. We commenced by planting 10 acres of tea in 1964, 15 acres during the following year, and 25 acres per annum thereafter. Planting 25 acres of new clearings each year was a monumental task and required a great deal of planning. Organizing the tea nursery itself was no mean effort. We needed approximately 125,000 new plants each year, and for this we put out around 140,000 clonal cuttings. Preparation of the land prior to planting was most important, and this included the construction of new roads and a drainage system to minimize soil erosion. After the next few years, workers' quarters were constructed, and in due course the chosen labor was resettled, albeit rather reluctantly. Within a relatively short period, just 5 to 10 years, these fields were yielding well over twice as much as the surrounding seedling area tea, and the workers reaped rewards for their hard work by obtaining a much higher remuneration for their work. When some loved a place, parting it does not come that easy. Fred had worked so hard to cultivate and organize a piece of land which lived through his heart, and he ends his memories with a sentimental note. He said, "When I left Sri Lanka in 1971, I felt, and still do, that I had left a little part of me back on Hamilton, which has now grown into a highly profitable division of about 140 acres of high-yielding and beautiful tea plantation anyone would be proud to own. I will always remember Laxapana Group and Hamilton Division for the 10 wonderful years I worked there despite some very challenging times. On my last visit in 2002 with a group of visitors from Australia, I noted regretfully most of the staff and labourers I worked with had moved on. I realized with a pang of sadness and nostalgia that I was now just another face in the crowd, another inquisitive visitor. I tried to locate Fred's address in Australia with the intention of congratulating on his outstanding work and also to get his photograph. Unfortunately without success. Certainly, this true professional should have many more untold stories about Laxapana. I salute him wherever he may be at present. Laxapana Tea Processing Centre has been awarded several certifications. Some of them are HACCP, Akimoto Highest Concept Certification, Quality Certificate from Sri Lanka Tea Board, winner of most number of top prizes for 2006 and 2007, FLO certificate from Fair Trade Labeling Organization, Ralston Teixeira Memorial Award for Excellence in Tea Manufacture during 2008, Ethical Tea Partnership Certificate, and ISO 22000 certification. On my return journey, I wanted to revisit the site where Sri Lanka's first civilian air crash took place, which is a few kilometers from Laxapana on the Maskeliya Norton Bridge Road. On December 4, 1974, Martin Air Flight 138 on behalf of Garuda Indonesia with 182 passengers and 9 crew crashed into the mountain, killing all of them. The passengers were Indonesian Hajj pilgrims bound for Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Since this story is outside my scope, I would not relate it in this forum. Thank you for watching. I will see you in my next episode.